Hello everyone and welcome back to Sade Crochets. For this tutorial I will be making this pair of shorts to match this top. I've designed it a few years back and people do order it quite a bit, so I do think it's a good share for you all. So I'm going to be starting off with my E-hook, which is a 3.5 millimeter hook. And then I'm going to briefly switch to my F hook. So the E hook is just for the ribbing. And then for the majority of it, I'll be using my G hook, which is a 4 millimeter hook. And then from there, you'll also need a measuring tape and a pair of scissors. And I'm going to be using the same color I just used for the top. I love this yarn in the color Jelly Bean, and it's a medium weight 4 yarn. And it's 100% acrylic. Okay, you can actually use a different size yarn, different size hooks. I'm kind of going to give you the general way to customize this for any size. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first, before we get started, you're going to want to go ahead and take your measuring tape and measure out the widest part of your hips. And once you have that measurement, we can go ahead and start. So first we're going to make our slip knot and then make a chain of 9. Oh, and by the way, I am starting off with my E hook, the 3.5 millimeter hook. Okay, so we'll make our slip knot and then we'll chain 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then I'm just going to chain one more for a turning chain. And so I'm going to skip that turning chain and put a single crochet in the second chain from my hook, and then from there I'm just putting one single crochet in every stitch. So that should be 9 single crochets total. Eight and 9. Okay, so we just have 9 single crochets. From here, chain 1 and turn. Excuse me. And now we're going to start on the ribbing stitch. So instead of going through both loops like normal, we're going to just go through the back loop only. And that is the stitching to give us our stretchy waistband. So we're just putting one back loop only, a single crochet in every stitch. So you should have also 9 back loop only single crochets here. Don't forget that very last stitch there. Okay, from there we'll chain 1 and turn, and then we're just going to repeat that row again. We're going to continue repeating that row of 9 back loop only single crochets until this waistband can stretch out to your desired hip measurement. So for mine, I'm doing a 35 hip. So I'm going to continue repeating this row until this stretches out to 35. So go ahead and finish your waistband and I'll meet you there. All right, so once you finish crocheting your waistband long enough to stretch to your hip measurement, then we're going to go ahead and crochet them together. Now I do recommend trying to have an even amount of rows here, and the fastest way to tell is when you fold it in half, that the working yarn and the tail are on the opposite side. That'll stop you from having to like go back and count all of those. So we're going to I'm going to flip this so that the working loop is in the back. Whoops. And then fold this so that I just want the working loop in the back. Okay, so all we got to do is insert our hook into that first stitch of the foundation chain and then pull this loop through that stitch and then chain one. So that chain one can count as your first single crochet or your first slip stitch. It's up to you which one you want to use, but all we're doing is putting one single crochet or one slip stitch in every stitch so that they can be crocheted together and it'll be a continuous circle. So go ahead and finish crocheting the two sides together and I'll meet you there. Alright, so once you finish crocheting your two sides together, we're going to kind of turn this so that the seam can be on the inside. Okay, just kind of flipping it the other way so that this is on the inside. And now we are going to begin crocheting over in the sides of the rows. So what we're going to do is chain one and then find that first row here next to the seam and do a single crochet, and then we're just going to put one single crochet in the side of every row. So you can tell in between the rows, in between these two ridges is 2 rows, so we're just putting one single crochet in the side of every row, and we're going to do this all the way around until we reach the beginning. I'm also crocheting over this tail so I have less work at the end. So go ahead and finish crocheting one single crochet in every row and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I've crocheted all the way around by putting one single crochet in the side of every row, and now I'm just going to slip stitch into that very first single crochet, and I'm going to switch hooks from my 3.5 millimeter to my 3.75 millimeter or my F hook. And I'm just going to use this hook just for one round here. So now I'm going to chain one and turn, and then I'm going to do one single crochet in every stitch once again. So just place one single crochet in every stitch across until you get to the beginning of this round, and I will meet you there. Alright, and once again, once you make your way all the way around, we're just going to go ahead and slip stitch into that very first single crochet. Okay, and from here we're going to go ahead and switch to our G hook now. And from here I'm just gonna do a turn, and I'm not chaining one. I'm going to do a faux double crochet in the same stitch that we just slip stitched in. I'm going to put a single crochet there, single crochet, and then a chain one, and that is our faux double crochet. And from here I'm just going to put one double crochet in every stitch across. Oops. One double crochet in every stitch across until I get back to the beginning of this round. So go ahead and continue just doing one double crochet and I will meet you there. Alright, so I just am coming up on the end of this row, so I'm just going to slip stitch in that chain one above the single crochet, And from there, I'm just going to turn, and I'm going to do another faux double crochet in this very first stitch, the same stitch as we just slip stitched into. I did just pull it tight. Okay, so we're just going to single crochet in there and then add a chain 1 for our faux double crochet. So next we're just going to be putting 1 double crochet in every stitch across. So it's pretty similar to the previous row. We're actually looking to do 3 rows of this total. So go ahead and finish this row, and then also we'll be doing this row one more time so that we have 3 rows of this total. So go ahead and complete that, and I will meet you there. All right, so now from here what we're going to do is begin our increases, and every one will be increasing by about 4 stitches in every row. So I'm going to like spread those 4 stitches out. I'm not putting them like in the same spot every time I get to it. I'm just going to spread them out. If you want, you can keep your increases in the back or like kind of on the side here. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and turn, and I'm going to do my faux double crochet in the very same stitch that we joined in. If I didn't pull it too tight, which I always do. Okay, I finally got it together, y'all. So I'm doing my little faux double crochet, and then I'm just going to go over a couple of stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I did 4, and I'm just going to put an increase in this next stitch by putting 2 double crochets there in the same stitch. So that's 1 and 2, and I'm just going to crochet a little bit more. Three and 4, and then I'm going to put 1 more increase here. And so when I come back around, and you can stitch mark these, but when I come back around, I'm going to try to, so I did 4 first, and then I did an increase. I'm going to try to put them in the same spot. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that 5th one away, I'm going to put my increase there, and then I did 1, 2, 3, 4, so I'll count 4 more and do them there as I'm coming back around. So yeah, that's what I'm planning on doing, but you can kind of spread these out how you like. But just know that for the next row, I'm not gonna put my increase right on top of this increase, or that will pucker over time. So I'm just going to kind of spread them around evenly. I'm leaving most of my increases in the back, or kind of like towards the side. I kind of want my front end to be more flatter, because this is where really the increases your rear will eat up these increases back here, and you kind of want this flat. So that's kind of how I'm doing mine. But go ahead and increase by 4 in every row. Okay, so I just wanted to drop a note here. So I actually reached my hip measurement goal for this piece, which was 35. I hit that in 8 rows while I was increasing by 4 in every row. So you can kind of just take your measuring tape and kind of run it along here to check and see if it's halfway. So 35 is half of that is 17 and a half, so I definitely hit that. And 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, sorry, 9 rows I reached that. So once you reach your hip measurement, we're going to continue. So for the rest of the rows, I'm just going to go straight with no increase until I finish that 13th row. So depending on what size you're on, finish your increases until it is actually wide enough for the hip, and then you can go straight down from there. Okay, so go ahead and finish the rest of your rows and I'll meet you there. Okay, so once you finish the amount of rows for your size, and just you might want to go ahead and try this on and make sure that it sits up high enough on the waist for you and that it's not too low waist or too high waist. You can always add a couple of rows here, or you can take 1 or 2 away if it's sitting up too high for you. But from here, this is my inside, this is where my seam is. I'm just going to turn it to the right side before I do this. Okay. All right, so I have it on the right side, and let's focus. And so we're going to connect this. Another thing, you do want to make sure that you have an even amount of stitches in this last row, because it'll make this step easier for you. But this row, this column that we've been doing the seam on, that has the single crochet plus a chain 1, that's going to be our center back. Okay, and then we want to count out and find out which stitch is the center front. So you just want to make sure that both of these leg holes have the same amount of stitches in them before you continue. So from there, what we're going to do is attach the front to the back with a small string. And I normally put about 2 inches here. It's something you could definitely customize and play with for yourself, but all I do is I just chain out about 2 inches usually. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, that's probably 2 inches. Just make sure. Yeah, that's about 2 inches there. So 8 stitches is what I did. So I chain that out, and then I just slip stitch it to the center front. So I'm going to remove this stitch marker and slip stitch to the center front, and just try not to twist your little chain there if you can. Okay, so from there, what we're going to do is, so you want to pick which side that you're going to start on. You want the crochet stitches to, so you want the stitch on the right side and the hole on the left side. That'll help your pattern be continuous, because if I go this way, the stitch is on the left side and the hole is on the right. That's not a turn, so I'll be doing the same direction as my last row. So you just want to make sure, I guess that's the best way I could say it, but you just want to make sure that the stitch hole is on the left side of the stitch itself, and that means that you did in fact turn your work. So I'm going to start on this leg hole, because if I start on this one, it'll throw my pattern off a little bit. Okay, but from there, all I'm gonna do is start my double crochets in this very first stitch that I slip stitched to. So I'm just gonna go in there and do a single crochet and a chain 1. and then I'm just going to continue around this leg hole. So go ahead and put 1 double crochet in every stitch, and then I will meet you when we get back to this little string part there. Okay, so once you make your way around this leg hole and you get to your string part, we're just going to go on across. So I am going to hit this stitch, that center seam stitch, but I'm going to make sure I hit it on the other side too. So I'm going to hit that stitch, and then I'm just going to fold this so that the V's are facing me. And I'm going to put 1 double crochet in one leg of the V, not through both, but on this same side. I'm going to hit that side of the V's of every stitch, just like that. And once you finish hitting all of those stitches, we're just going to slip stitch into that very first double crochet of the leg hole. So you do want to pay attention to how you did the beginning of this and how you're doing this leg in general. If you do, you can count how many stitches you have. But other than that, let's continue. So from here, we're going to turn our work. And now we're going to go in the other direction to keep our pattern going the same way. So now I'm just going to do my little faux double crochet thing. And then in the center here is where I'm going to do my decreases. Now, if you want to be technical, you can measure your leg and continuously measure this as your leg goes down just to make sure. But I'm just going to decrease by 1 stitch for the next 4 rows. I'm kind of just guessing because this is in order and she lives out of town. I'm just guessing based on what my mannequin is doing on her leg. So I'm just decreasing 1 stitch in this row. So it's always better to be a little bit smaller with crochet because you do have a little bit of stretch there. So it doesn't have to be like super exact unless you really want to make it that way. But yeah, so I'm gonna decrease in the middle of the leg hole so you see it a little bit less. So I'm just going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, insert my hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, pull through 2, and then just keep going. So I'm gonna do that for the next 4 rows. So for the entire rest of this row, I'm just going to come back and slip stitch and then turn. But every time I get to the middle area into this crotch part, I'm going to do 1 decrease for the next, so this is row 1 of it. I'm going to do 3 more rows just like this one, and I'm there. Okay, so I did about 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I did my 4 rows of decreases. I actually, and then I went and tried it on my mannequin just to make sure I like the fit. So I just recommend like making sure you know how many times you decreased here. If you try it on now, you can tell if it's tight enough for you or if it's too loose, then you might want to go back and do some more decreases. But it depends on how long you want your shorts. I'm making mine's pretty long. If you're gonna make them a little bit longer, I would just recommend like doing about 2 inches or so. How long did we do? Yeah, do about 2 inches and see if you like that set of decreases, and then keep going until they're long enough for you. I will also recommend that you kind of take some notes on how often you decreased over here so that you can repeat that. Sometimes we, crochet for a while and we put it down and then we can't remember what we did. We think we'll remember. But yeah, you'll continue this until your shorts are long enough. But remember, if you want to add the border that I'm doing to match that green top, if you want to put the border on there, just keep that in mind that that's going to take up a couple of rows itself too. So go ahead and finish this leg how you like, and I'll meet you when we get to that border part. All right, so I ended up doing 10 rows total. So we did that first row with no decrease, but then I did 10 rows with 1 decrease each. And I just kept trying it on the mannequin as I went, and it's pretty snug. I like it. So that's what I did. It's long enough for me now. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and turn. And now I'm going to start on the little mesh border. So we're going to start off with our faux double crochet in the joining stitch, and you do need to make sure that this last row here had an even number of stitches for this mesh pattern to work. Okay, so it's okay if you have to go back and undo or add one more decrease. Just make sure you have an even number here. So we'll start off with our faux double crochet and a chain one, and then we'll chain one more. Okay, and then we're going to skip one and double crochet in the next stitch, and then skip one, and then chain one, skip one, double crochet in the next stitch, chain one, skip one, and double crochet in the next stitch. So that's pretty much all we're doing is chain one, skip one, double crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so I have finished my last double crochet, so then from there I'll just chain one and slip stitch into this chain space. You can go into the actual chain there, but if you don't want to, this is quicker. And then from there I'm just going to turn my work and do another faux double crochet here. So single crochet plus the chain one plus chain one more, and then I'm going to skip this empty chain space and double crochet on top of the double crochet, chain one, skip the chain space and double crochet on top of the next double crochet, chain one, skip the chain space and double crochet on top of the next double crochet. So that's pretty much all we're doing for this round. So go ahead and finish this round, and then we're going to repeat this round one more time so we have 3 rows of this little mesh detail, and I'll meet you there. All right, so I ended up doing my 3 rows of this mesh stitch, and now I'm just going to go ahead and turn. And then in this very first joining stitch, I'm going to put a single crochet and then a single crochet in the empty chain space and a single crochet on the double crochet and a single crochet in the empty chain space. So I'm just going to put essentially 1 single crochet in every stitch, and I will meet you at the end of this round. Okay, so I have single crocheted all the way around, and I'm just going to slip stitch into that first single crochet and then turn. And now I'm going to switch for 1 row back to the F hook, which is the 3.75 millimeter hook. So I'm switching to that hook, and I'm just going to do the same thing and just do one single crochet in every stitch. And so go ahead and finish this row, and I will meet you there. All right, so I completed that round, and I'm just going to slip stitch into the first single crochet of the round. And now I'm switching to my E-hook. And so I'm finishing the border by putting a little bit of ribbing at the bottom. I just find that it kind of holds the shorts in place and kind of helps them to not ride up so much. So in order to do a ribbing border, we're going to chain out 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, and then I'm going to chain one more for a turning chain. And I'm going to kind of lay this on the side because we're kind of going in that direction. So I'm skipping that turning chain and then putting one single crochet into every stitch down towards the bottom. So you should end up with 9 single crochets. Okay, I got one more single crochet left. All right, so when you reach back to the base of the shorts, in that very same stitch where we joined, we're going to do a slip stitch. So that's the first row of the ribbing. So we just do a slip stitch in the joined stitch there, and then we're going to do a slip stitch in the very next stitch. So this is row 2 of the ribbing, and that's the second stitch. So for every stitch is going to be a row. So for row 2, we're going to slip stitch and then turn. So once you turn, we're just going to, so remember we slip stitched twice to the base. So we're not going to use those 2 stitches. If you use those 2 stitches, your ribbing won't go straight at the bottom. So you'll skip the first 2 because those are our 2 slip stitches, and then we're going to do back loop only single crochet in the next stitch. So you should still have 9. So you should have 9 back loop only single crochets all the way down. So once you finish your 9 single crochets, go ahead and chain 1 and turn. And so we're going to skip that turning chain, and we'll do 9 more back loop only single crochets back towards the shorts. And so when you come back, just make sure that you get that very last stitch there. Sometimes it's tucked in there pretty good, so just count and make sure you always have 9. If you have 8, then there's a stitch kind of there in the corner that could have gotten hidden. So once you make your way back down, you're going to have to look at this to see that we slip stitched into this stitch. So we want the one that we didn't use yet. So go ahead and slip stitch into the next stitch, and then that closes off the 3rd row there, but we want to start our 4th row, so we're going to slip stitch into the very next stitch and turn, and then we can start our 4th row. So remember, when you turn, that we did 2 slip stitches, so those aren't a part of the actual ribbing. So you want to always skip your 2 slip stitches and go into that 3rd stitch. Let me wrap this around the other side. There we go. So yes, skip those first 2 slip stitches and then continue with your ribbing by doing back loop only single crochets, and that's pretty much how this pattern repeats for the ribbing border. So go ahead and make your way all the way around and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I'm coming down this row and I just have 2 stitches left and at the base of the shorts. So just like I've been doing, I'm going to slip stitch twice, and it's looking like my last stitch is going to be, or my last row of this is going to be upwards. So let me turn. So your last row, wherever you are, you should have had an even number, so I think you should be going back out towards the bottom of the shorts. So like before, we'll skip 2 and just do our back loop only single crochets going down. And we're not going to start a new row after this last row. But if you ended up going this way, it would kind of be similar. We're just going to do a seam from the inside to close this ribbing stitch. So I'm not going to chain 1. I'm just going to kind of fold these so that they can be together. Let's see which side I want to work on. But you just want to make your seam from the inside. So I'm kind of like folding them so that I can put these together on the inside. And I'm going to, depending on where you are, I'm going to have to, it looks like I'm going to have to pull this loop through from the back side. Pull that through. Okay, so once you have it in both sides, then all we're going to do is slip stitch these together. In this first stitch, I'm just going to chain 1 and kind of pull it tight. But in the rest of them, I'm just going to slip stitch them together, matching up the different stitches until I get to through all 9 stitches here on both sides. Okay, so I just have 2 stitches left here, 1, and that last one, if you're coming from the same direction as me, is going to be a little tight, just guess. But just try to make sure you have like 9 slip stitches, or 8 plus a chain 1 in that first stitch. And then once you do that, you'll chain 1 and cut and tie off. And we'll weave that one in later. So our first leg is completed. And so what we want to do is find that seam, which was the way I did mine was in the front. So we're going to find that seam stitch that it's coming out of, and it looks like it's coming out of this middle stitch here. So what you want to do is go back to your G hook and reattach your yarn to this side. It's a really long tail. There we go. So I'm just going to double knot it here, and then you also want to want to make sure that you're going in the right direction. Your hole needs to be on the left of the actual stitch, so I'm going in this direction. I don't know if you can see that, but the hole is on the left and not on the right. So if I turn it this way, the hole is on the right, and so that's the wrong way. You don't want to go that way. So we're essentially repeating what we just did on the first leg hole. So when you come through this crotch area, we only used one side of the V. You'll be using that other side. So go ahead and rewind the video if you need to, but we're just repeating this leg just like we did this leg, and then you'll be all finished. Thank you all so much for watching once again, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, or leave me a comment if you like this video. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.